Alright friends, I'm going to try to read this to you a different way. My other way was it's a long book, so it wouldn't let me record. So this is my very first space book. Here's our title page, my very first space book, illustrated by Lee Cosgrove, written by Emily Bone, designed by Alice Reese. The night sky. When the sun sets, the sky grows dark. You'll start to see twinkling stars. What you're looking at is just a tiny part of space. Space is so enormous, no one knows how big it really is. Someone who studies space is called an astronomer. The moon is the brightest thing in the night sky. This is a space agency where people design spacecraft and train to go into space. Rocket ready to launch. People who fly into space are called astronauts. What is space? We live on planet Earth. Space is everything around our planet. There are lots of incredible things out there. Galaxies, stars, moons, planets, space rocks called asteroids, space probe, TV satellites send pictures to your television. Here's a rocket blasting into space, a comet. Earth is covered by a layer of gases called the atmosphere. This is planet Earth. From space, it looks like a green, blue, and white ball. The green parts are land, the blue areas are water. The moon. The moon is a big ball of rock that travels around the Earth. The lighter areas are the tops of the mountains. The dark patches are huge holes called craters. There is no air or water, and nothing lives on the moon. Over 40 years ago, the first astronauts landed on the moon. So far, only 12 astronauts have ever been there. The first astronauts on the moon left a flag to show they had visited. Here's one filming, lunar modules, spacesuit, collecting moon rocks, and a moon buggy. Space school. Before astronauts go into space, they have to do a lot of training, learning everything about space and space travel, getting very fit and being tested on it, finding out how to work spacecraft controls, emergency escape drills, learning what to do if they crash into the sea, using tools, learning the languages of astronauts from different countries, saying "Privé, hi, guten Tag," repairing a pretend spacecraft while floating in a huge water tank. Space is very different from Earth. Everything floats. Floating in water feels like floating in space. Talking to experienced astronauts, being given a mission, and meeting the rest of the crew. Liftoff. A rocket called a launch vehicle flies a team of 3 astronauts into space. Soyuz spacecraft, launch being prepared for liftoff, booster rockets, a service tower keeps the launch vehicle in place, astronauts going up to Soyuz, friends and family waving goodbye, and a launch pad. Astronauts inside Soyuz getting ready to lift off. Booster rockets firing. Liftoff. Booster rockets falling back to Earth. Launch vehicles falling back in Soyuz, flying away. Space station. In space, astronauts live and work in a spacecraft called the International Space Station. It is above the Earth. Soyuz joins up with the space station and astronauts go in. Soyuz, storage room, astronauts relaxing, robot arm for moving equipment, we've got laboratories for experiments, solar panels turn sunlight into power, the Earth. And it says we go on spacewalks to fix things. Living in space. On the space station, everything floats. This is what happens during a day. Washing using dry shampoo, using the toilet. Exercising for 2 hours, eating, most food comes in packets, repairing the outside of the space station, doing experiments. This experiment is testing how things grow in space, relaxing, cleaning. Dirt could get into equipment and break it. Receiving deliveries from supply spacecraft. An astronaut guides the spacecraft up to the station. Unpacking supplies, talking to family back home, taking photos of Earth, going to sleep. Sleeping bags are strapped to the wall so you don't float away. Spacewalk. There's no air in space. When astronauts go on a spacewalk out of the space station, they have to wear a spacesuit that gives them air and keeps them safe. Here we've got an air and water tank, a drink bag, a helmet with lights and camera, tools to be clipped onto the astronaut suit. We've got an upper torso, a control panel showing how much air and water is left. We've got an arm, gloves, lower torso, a tether, and this layer keeps the body at just the right temperature. Astronauts go on spacewalks in pairs, checking spacesuits and putting them on, going into an airlock for 24 hours. This gets astronauts used to what it'll be like outside the space station. Opening the exit hatch, attaching the tether and going outside. The tether stops astronauts from floating off into space. Receiving instructions from Earth. Proceed to target. Over. Fitting new equipment to the space station. Most spacewalks last about 6 hours. And we've got space drill, drinking from the space bag, here's the straw, and returning to space station. Solar system. Earth is one of 8 planets that travel around the sun. The sun and the planets are known as the solar system. We've got the sun, we've got Mercury, Venus. Venus is covered in thick poisonous clouds. We've got the Earth. This is the moon. Other planets have moons too. Sometimes space rocks crash into planets. Mars. Jupiter is the biggest planet, has more than 60 moons. The Great Red Spot is a huge storm. We have Uranus. Uranus has rings made from ice and dust. We have an asteroid belt, is a group of space rocks. Saturn's rings are made from chunks of rocks and ice. Neptune, we've got a comet, is a ball of gas, ice, and dust. It leaves a bright trail behind it. Sometimes we can see it if it's nice and dark. This is Pluto. It's a dwarf planet. It'll tell you, sometimes they'll say, look out for a comet that's coming today. All right, now Jupiter, he's saying Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune aren't solid. They're balls of gas or liquid. Exploring Mars. Small spacecraft have flown vehicles called rovers to Mars. Rovers find out more about the rocks and air on Mars. Number 1, spacecraft flying to Mars. Number 2, parachute opening to slow down the spacecraft. The rover is packed inside. 3, sky crane falling away. 4, sky crane lowering rover down. Rover's wheels opening out. 5, rover landing and driving along. Receiving instructions from Earth. Exploring different places and taking pictures. Here's the camera. Finding a laser and drilling into rocks to find out what's inside them. A laser is a very hot beam. Scooping up dust and testing it. Finding out about the weather on Mars and sending pictures back to Earth. Stars. Stars are massive balls of very, very hot gases. The sun is a star. This is what it looks like up close. Gases bubbling on the sun's surface. This is a solar flare, a big explosion. And they're saying from Earth, the sun looks bigger than other stars because it's our closest star. There are different types of stars. Our sun is a type of star called a yellow dwarf. The biggest and most powerful stars are called supergiants. The least powerful stars are called red dwarfs. Life of a star. A new star is formed out of a huge swirling cloud of gas and dust called a nebula. This is the Tarantula Nebula. Number 1, part of the nebula gets thicker and hotter. Number 2, slowly it turns into a hot ball. Number 3, this becomes a new star. Stars glow and burn for millions and millions of years. Then they start to change. Different stars change in different ways. Number 1, a yellow dwarf star gets cooler, bigger, and duller. 2, its outer layers puff away. 3, eventually a white dwarf star is left behind. Number 1, a supergiant star gets bigger and brighter. 2, it explodes. This is called a supernova. 3, a big cloud of gas is left behind. Great galaxies. Millions and millions of stars form massive groups called galaxies. Galaxies come in different shapes and sizes. This is a spiral galaxy. This is called the cartwheel galaxy because it looks like a wheel. Some galaxies look like bright balls. Other galaxies are slowly joining together. The sun is just one star in a spiral galaxy called the Milky Way. Lots of stars are being formed in this bright bulge. The sun is somewhere around here, so look how small it is. Looking at space. Telescopes help people see things in space that are very far away. There are lots of different types. Hubble Space Telescope. Space telescopes take pictures of things in space. This space telescope is called Gaia. Probes fly around planets. We've got an optical telescope. Radio telescopes look for faraway stars and galaxies. And here in this one, in the optical telescope, mirrors make things look bigger. With telescopes or binoculars, you can see things in more detail. Hubble is a famous space telescope. A spacecraft taking Hubble into space, Hubble flying around the Earth, astronauts fitting new cameras into Hubble. Astronauts have been sent to make repairs. Hubble taking lots of pictures and sending them back to Earth. Radio dishes on Earth collect the pictures, then send them to computers. Scientists in the pictures. Each swirl and dot in this picture is a faraway galaxy. Stargazing. Even without using a telescope, you can see lots of things in the sky. Stars can be joined up to make pictures called constellations. Sirius is the brightest star in the sky. We've got the Great Dog, Orion the Hunter, the Southern Cross, the Big Dipper. The International Space Station passing overhead looks like a bright star. The moon, the planet Jupiter. This is the brightest part of the Milky Way galaxy. We've got a shooting star, the planet Venus. Sometimes glowing lights appear. This is called an aurora. What you can see in the sky changes depending on the time of year and where you are in the world. All right, thank you for reading with me my very first space book.